With My Hero Academia ended and JJK on the verge of ending, it's got me thinking of anime endings overall and how controversial they can be. Whether it's anime falling off, or not living up to hype, or just overall being unsatisfied with how the anime is finished, it's obviously a common theme in anime that sometimes they just don't end the best. But for every 10 bad anime endings, there are 2 to 3 that end up amazing. And we've already kind of discussed bad anime endings, so I think it's time we switch up the script a little bit and talk about what I think is the best anime ending. So today we're going to talk about
Fullmetal Alchemist.
Character development is one of the main make or break factors that play into an ending. The first category that comes into mind when fulfilling a great anime ending is character development. Like honestly, think about how many times a mangaka sets up a character to do great things or sets up a character to be developed only for it to fall short. We are in big 2024 and we still have niggas talk about how Rock Lee was underutilized in the series. Whether it's because the series was being rushed or the mangaka didn't know how to fulfill the potential of the character, it happens a lot. And let's be honest, the more ambitious you make a character, the harder it is to pull off. Pause. Spoilers ahead if you haven't caught up already, but towards the end of the series, Roy Mustang loses his eyesight. Now, this is important because Roy Mustang is a character that throughout the series has an intense, great vision. And it's precisely because of this great vision and unwavering focus on his goals, which is becoming the Führer, that he is blind to what's truly important. So Mustang losing his eyesight allowed him to realize that he doesn't need to be the Führer to incite change. He doesn't need to be part of the military. He doesn't even need his damn eyesight to do that. Anyone can make a difference, a huge difference. Another huge part of Mustang's character is the Ishvalan War. So we all know that the war gave Mustang a purpose to change the country, but funny enough with that, despite the Ishvalan War being one of the most important things that happened in Mustang's life, he never actually tried to do anything about the actual consequences of the war. The Ishvalan people were basically living in the slums. It was very, very bad. Meanwhile, Mustang thought, okay, well, the only way I can make amends for the war is by having the soldiers, including myself, tried as war criminals. But that's just not the way to go about it. Fullmetal Alchemist always stresses that it's okay to make errors. That's what life's all about. It's not the end of the world. Like, mistakes, errors, and failures are an opportunity to reflect, learn, and grow. And honestly, just kind of like stepping back a little bit, in anime and fiction in general, it's almost a noble thing for characters to die. Like, you have an evil villain or something there, they do all these terrible things, and the way for the audience and the characters in the series to kind of forgive them is them dying. It's like, kind of, I died going against my evil self or whatever, like I died doing this, and people think that that's the way for the character to have his sins forgiven. And honestly, in anime and fiction in general, it's almost a noble thing for characters to die, for the audience and the other characters to kind of forgive their sins. But it just doesn't work that way. Like, you can only make a difference while alive. You can only find true atonement while living with the consequences of your actions. The road to redemption is a very, very long road. Like, that's a big thing that Fullmetal Alchemist, stresses. That's why it's super important that the Philosopher Stone that Marco uses to heal Mustang's eyesight was the stone made from Ishvalan lives. It kind of goes as like you almost say it's like a contract where Mustang getting his eyesight back involves him agreeing to commit himself to the Ishvalans and to actually make a positive change in their country. Like, you gotta understand that it almost seemed like it was a pride thing for Mustang, right? Where he's like, okay, this is how I view change, or how I can like make it right. And it's like, nah, that's not the way to go about it. That's not what we needed you to do. And let's just be honest, a lot of series don't have that much attention to detail in their endings. Like, to round up a character like that, it's kind of insane. But, you know what I'm saying, that's just one guy, you know what I'm saying? There's another guy we have to tackle, which is obviously the main character of the entire series, Edward Elric. So, while Mustang lost his eyesight towards the end of the series, because that was, he was blind to what was most important and whatnot, Edward lost something a lot more personal for him, and that was his alchemy. Alchemy's main rule doubles as Fullmetal Alchemist's main theme, which, that's perfect because that's the law of equivalent exchange. The law of equivalent exchange states that something cannot be created from nothing, and if something is created, an item of equal worth must be exchanged for it. At that, you gotta pay attention to that, because that definition pretty much sums up the entire series. Like that, you're gonna see the law of equivalent exchange everywhere. I'm gonna be honest, throughout the entire series, our boy Ed was spamming his alchemy. Like we have to really be honest, it deadass was the crutch to solve all of his problems. For crying out loud, our first introduction to alchemy was Ed using alchemy to bring back his deceased mother and lost brother, at least at the time. But in the end of the series, Edward has to trust in his friends, family, and the world to do what is needed to sustain itself. He can't be the only driving force anymore. He has to let the world do what it needs to do. And he has to trust that his friends and family are smart enough and are diligent enough to help make those changes. But let me slow down because I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. During the final battle with Father, Ed's metal arm gets completely destroyed. Like, that shit gets ripped to pieces. And his only good arm is basically stabbed through a rebar. And I'm not gonna lie, like, Edward has had better days, to be honest. Like, it's a very bad situation overall. When all hope seems lost, Alphonse does the unthinkable. With May's help, Alphonse gives his soul up in order to restore Edward's original right arm, because as we know, Edward hasn't had his right arm for the entire series, and he hasn't had his left leg either, so he loses all that. But Edward gets his arm back, and with that newly acquired arm, he beats the living shit out of Father. I'm talking about beat the bat shit out of him. Like, it's probably one of the most one-sided fights in anime you'll probably ever see. Like, it's really bad. Like, there's even a scene where he literally like has the metal cut through the body. It's insane. Like, he's beating the living shit out of him. But
we must stay focused, brothers. We must stay focused.
After defeating Father, the next order of business is bringing back Alphonse. The only problem that we had was that the only way to do so is using a Philosopher Stone, which the Elric brothers have already promised to not use. But this is where Hohenheim comes to play. Hohenheim essentially left the Elric brothers for dead and is low-key, high-key, one of the big catalysts for the complete series starting. But Hohenheim offers his last life as a substitute to bring back Alphonse, even apologizing for leaving them and letting their mom Trish end up dying. Despite the fucked up shit that he did in the past, he said he finally stepped up as a father and finally was being selfless. So much so that Edward and Hohenheim actually reconcile, and for the first time ever, Ed calls Hohenheim father, which is a big thing. After reflecting on everything that's happened in the entire series and what everyone's done for them, Edward draws a human transmutation circle and what he dubs as his final act of alchemy as the Fullmetal Alchemist. And this is where Ed meets Truth again. So the Truth is a character that played a huge role in Fullmetal Alchemist throughout the story, but especially the ending. Truth's presence, influence, and implications closely tie with the concept of what the meaning of life is. Like, if you kind of look at it, you can kind of see he's almost a reminder to appreciate what you have and to not be too selfish. The Truth is basically a being who appears whenever someone tries human transmutation. The real messed up part about the Truth is that the valuable attribute he ends up taking always has a huge sense of irony to it. In order for Ed to get his mom back, he had to give up his whole left leg. Edward lost his left leg to bring back his mom, and the irony in this obviously is that he can no longer stand on his own, and it was kind of a reminder and a tease that he couldn't even do the alchemy to bring back his mom on his own, so that he couldn't even do that by himself. When Edward was using alchemy to bring back Alphonse, while what Alphonse lost was his sense of touch, because the whole time in the series, Alphonse wanted to feel the touch of others, especially feeling the touch of his mother again. So the one thing that he would lose would be the ability to feel others' warmth. So that was his whole thing. Alphonse could never feel again. But in order for Ed to get back Alphonse, he had to give something else up. And what he had given was his right arm, because as we all know, if you watch the series, Alphonse throughout the series, you can easily argue that Alphonse has always been Edward's right hand man. So if you want to get your right hand man back, you got to give up your right hand or your right arm. Looking at Izumi, who tried to bring her kid back to life, lost all of her reproductive organs, so now she can no longer conceive, which deprived her even more of motherhood. She just never can have kids ever again. So that was her big thing. Motherhood was a big part of her character, and she no longer can do that at all. And obviously we've already talked about Mustang and him losing his eyesight, which obviously the reason is in Mustang's case, he won't be able to see the future that he is trying to make as Führer. So in short, if you see the Truth, you're in for some bullshit. I'm not gonna lie to you. But back to the best ending ever. When Edward returns back to the gate after the final fight with Father, the Truth appears before him and basically asks like, yo, what are you finna give up to get Alphonse's entire body back, bro? Like, you lost an arm already, you lost a leg. Like, are you gonna give them shit up? It's not good. It's not gonna be good enough anymore. Like, you need something more worthy of a sacrifice, which is equivalent exchange for Alphonse's entire body and soul, because you've lost both of them now. At this point in the series, the Truth has almost urged the cast to really find what's important in life, and obviously it's to no avail. And in this moment, it's honestly crazy because, as we know, Ed does the unthinkable, and that's to give up his own gate of truth and thus his power of alchemy in exchange. Edward basically says like, yo, I'm not gonna lie, bro, like, the power of alchemy isn't what's important in life. In fact, it damn near has caused me more trouble than it's worth, which we know is a fact, because that nigga, his life has been torn up by alchemy. That's one of the things that I loved about the Fullmetal Alchemist ending. Like, the ending stayed true to the main premise of the law of equivalent exchange. Edward wasn't able to, like, overpower that with his new strength and whatnot. Like, at the end of the day, something had to be worth another thing, and Edward basically found out like, yo, what's worth Alphonse? The entire Alphonse package was Edward's alchemy. But this is the exact answer that the Truth has been looking for the entire series. While pleased, he congratulates Edward on finding the correct answer and beating it. And this answer is the Truth. This is the Truth, pun intended. Like, this is what the Truth has been looking for. alchemy's not the most important thing. Edward found what that is, and with doing that, Edward finally beats the truth, and Edward gets Alphonse back. Alphonse gets it, but at the cost of his alchemy. But that's the thing, though. That's one thing that Fullmetal Alchemist was able to do really, really well. They were still able to establish a great ending or a good ending, but that made sense for the characters. Alphonse was able to step out of Ed's shadow and into his own body, literally. He goes on to study alchemy and alchemy under May's tutelage, while Edward Elric gets to basically live his life and kind of see how everyone grows, you know, finally getting Winry at the end, you know what I'm saying? You know, he gets the girl. That's obviously a W. It's always been a W in anime. So we get to see him live his life. We get to see Mustang, basically Mustang and Hawkeye. I didn't really touch on Hawkeye too much, but Mustang and Hawkeye are basically like a crazy two-man duo where Hawkeye is standing right beside Mustang, and Mustang, with his eyesight and his actual vision truly restored, he's able to now see what's important in life, now help the Ishvalans to really build them back up what they lost. So we have Mustang doing all that, and it's just like, everything is just placed so perfectly for the characters. Then you can obviously throw in the final fight, and Fullmetal Alchemist just completed so nicely. Like, it gave you a true mix of happiness and sadness. You know, we get to see, you know, Hohenheim. Even Hohenheim's character ends up completing nicely, right? Where he kind of is stuck in this realm of between being God and being human, and he can really never touch, or he can really never feel how the humans feel. He can never, it's like he's kind of living his life above man, and he ends up giving his life for man, which is his son Alphonse. And Edward's like, damn, like you were a real nigga in the end. We really get to see those characters resolve, and everyone gets an ending that is deserving of their character. That's a huge thing in anime that I think Fullmetal Alchemist is one of those series that ends up doing, and a lot of them don't. But in the end, Edward saw the truth, and he learned what really mattered, and that is all about what Fullmetal Alchemist is about. Edward gave up being the Fullmetal Alchemist for what really mattered. So in the end, I don't really know how you can play a better anime ending than Fullmetal, but if you think there's a better ending than Fullmetal, you know what I'm saying, let me know in the comments down below. I know some of y'all might, I've heard people say Haiku, I've heard Cowboy Bebop, I've heard a lot of endings, but what do you think in the down below in the comments for the best anime ending? Let me know down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification, but I'm out, so peace.